Just don't let my agent know I should phone from the right. All right, so we're talking about liquor, alcohol. In order to make alcohol, the first thing we do is we do what's called a mash. And a mash is a mixture of some sort of sugar-bearing product that the yeast can work on, okay? And so what we do is we mash. We mix it with, like if it's grain, we mix it with water and grind it up, and that kind of stuff. And this makes the mash. And then we distill it. So we first mash. Second step is to distill. And the distilling is, we have to create. Oh, I'm sorry, I did wrong. That's not distilling. The second step is fermentation. I was thinking to myself, okay, what's the third step? Because isn't that distilling? Okay, so the first step is to make a mash, where you can take grapes and crush them up, make a juicy product out of it. You can take grain, which is what most alcohol is made out of, and you grind it up and mix it with water, okay? And then you add yeast to the mash, and then you ferment the mash. So in other words, when it's just the mash, it's just liquid and whatever stuff you're using. If it's grapes, it's the liquid from the grapes. If it's wheat, or rye or whatever those things that you're making, vodka or whiskey from, just crushing that up and mix it with water. Then you add yeast to it and you ferment it. Okay, this gives you a kind of beer called distiller's beer, right? If you're using grains, and then now you distill it, and then you age it. All right, let's talk about what distillation is. Distillation, in this case, you're going to take the fermented mash, you're going to put it into some kind of still. And it's a bunch of liquid, and it's got pieces of grain in it, it's got dead yeast in it, it's a mess. Okay? It's going to have color, depending on different things. And you add heat to it, so we'll put the international symbol for fire on this. Okay? Bless you. You add heat to it, and what happens is the alcohol is more volatile than the other stuff that's in that liquid. So what happens is, as it begins to heat up, this alcohol becomes a vapor, and it goes up into basically a tube, and it cools down and turns back into a liquid state and goes into the bottle. Okay. Now it isn't quite that simple because there's aging and filtering and that kind of stuff, but that's basically what it is. Now, the more we distill something, the more pure the alcohol is. The more we distill something, the more pure the alcohol is. And so different types of liquor are distilled to various amounts. The less we distill it, the more color and flavor remain in it. The more we distill it, the more neutral it becomes. That is, it becomes clear and flavorless. Okay? Now let me quickly talk about a few kinds of alcohols here, and I'm going to talk to you about a thing called proof. A thing called proof. And proof we use a little degree sign, like a little zero, to talk about the proof of something. So most alcohol is served at about 85 or 88 proof, all right? 80 proof, something like that, depending on what kind it is. So if we take a vodka, for example, and you look on the bottle and it says it's 80 proof vodka. I'll make it 80 proof just to make it even number. The proof is twice the alcohol by volume. So what percentage alcohol is 80 proof liquor?
40.
40%. It's 40% alcohol and 40% something else. I mean, and 60% something else. Okay, usually water. I mean, depending on what you're making. Okay, so let me just tell you a couple of things that we make and how they're distilled. Vodka and gin are distilled to about 195 degrees of proof. That's why they're clear. They don't have any flavor. Now gin, gin is made from what is called a neutral grain spirit. But what happens with vodka, we just let it distill. It gets rid of all the color, virtually all the flavor, all the smell of it. It's distilled to 190 degrees of proof, and then we add water back in it. Because if you drank 190 degree vodka, 190 proof vodka, you know, you have 2 of those, and now you think you're Tarzan, you're swinging around the chandeliers and that kind of stuff. Okay, so and it would burn you. It would actually burn as you're drinking it. It'd be very difficult to drink. So they add water to it to make it what we call a potable, P-O-T-A-B-L-E, a potable drinking thing. Gin, when gin is distilled, remember that picture I had up here a few minutes ago of how the steam, the alcoholic steam goes up through this tube and then cools back off again, recondenses? Mm-hmm. Well, in gin, they put a thing called a gin head there, and in that is juniper berries. Juniper berries, and that's what gives gin its distinct aroma and flavor. Okay? But gin and vodka are neutral grain spirits. They're both distilled to about 195 degrees of proof, so they don't have much flavor. But the alcohol steam has picked up flavor and aroma from the juniper in gin. All right, gin used to be a very, very popular liquor. It's not. We don't see it so much anymore. Now we have whiskeys, and whiskeys have color. They have like a dark or sort of caramel color. Oh, about almost out of time. Caramel color to them. Whiskeys are distilled to 135 degrees of proof, and what happens is that leaves in there this coloring and this flavor. Now let's talk about some different kinds of whiskeys. Okay, one of the best known kinds of whiskeys is called Scotch whiskeys. Would anyone like to guess where Scotch comes from? Scotland, not from the Scotch Tape Company. Okay, so all true Scotches are made in Scotland. Okay, and Scotches have a smoky flavor to them because the grain that is used to make them is I think it's a barley. But what happens is, do you know what peat moss is? It's like real thick grass. They burn peat moss. Now you can imagine peat moss doesn't burn very efficiently. It gives off a lot of smoke, and the smoke from the peat moss, actually from the burning peat, actually flavors this barley, I think it's barley they use, with a smoky flavor and an aroma, which is still left in there because it's only still 135 degrees of proof. By the way, there are 4 distinct peat-producing areas of Scotland. You don't need to know that, but Scotches are made with a malt, which is made from a barley, and there are single malt Scotches. There are double malt Scotches, that kind of stuff. Okay, that's why sometimes Scotches are consumed after dinner instead of a cigar, because you still get that smoky flavor. So we have Scotch whiskey, we have rye whiskey. What kind of grain is rye whiskey made from? Can I guess? Mm-hmm. Rye, very good. Yes, it's made from rye, which is why they call it rye whiskey. We have Canadian whiskey. Now this is a tough one for you. Canadian whiskey. Where do you think Canadian whiskey comes from? Canada, very good. And we have bourbon. Bourbon whiskey. Bourbon whiskey is made, I think, only in Tennessee and Kentucky. I can't remember. But it's bourbon has to have a certain percentage of corn in it. I forget what the percentage is. Is Jack Daniels a bourbon whiskey? What does Jack Daniels call themselves? A Tennessee sipping whiskey. You know, it's basically a bourbon. Okay, and other famous bourbons are Maker's Mark. You know, these are different kinds of bourbons. You know, different kinds of, all right. So then we have rum, and rum. So those are different kinds of whiskeys. We have rum. Rum is made from sugar cane, and there are two kinds of rum basically. There's light rum and dark rum. Light rum is distilled to a higher degree of proof, and dark rum is distilled to a lesser degree of proof, where the colors and flavors and stuff are still in. Also, spiced rum is a popular drink where they add some spices to it. Different kinds of rum. Let's see, we have vodka. Oh, we have infused vodkas nowadays. We have, what kind of infused vodkas? We have vanilla vodka, right? Chocolate vodka.
Gummy.
What is it called?
Gummy.
Gummy vodka? I haven't heard of that one.
It's like a gummy fish thing.
Well, like a gummy bears or gummy fish in there? Bunch of drunk gummy bears in there lying around having a party. Fish swimming backwards and stuff, you know. So that's an infused vodka. They become pretty popular. What kinds of alcohol can you think of? Tequila. 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 You guys shouldn't even know what it tastes like. Anyway, tequila is made from a cactus, the agave. Okay. Who's the only one that really likes tequila? It's the worm. And there are different kinds of tequila. Now, tequila is a kind of thing where there are differences in different kinds of tequila because some of them are golds, that sort of thing. There are flavors in tequila. It's not a neutral grain spirit. What else? What are kinds of? What is it? Liqueurs. Yeah, I'm not going to get into them right now. But yes, absolutely. These are the major kind, though, right? Okay. All right. So we'll end that there then.